You're listening to Media History Podcast,
where stories echo beyond the headlines. She was 5 when she declared, "I'll be a writer."
She said it with the kind of certainty you'd expect from someone reading it out of a book of prophecies.
And maybe that's exactly what it was, because Oriana Fallaci always knew who she was.
Even when the world wasn't ready for a woman like her.
This story takes us back to the 1920s Florence, a city of artists, priests, craftsmen, and rebels. It was there on June 29, 1929, that a girl was born who would spend the next decade scraping at the conscience of the world. Oriana's father, Edoardo Fallaci, was a craftsman and a fierce anti-fascist. He never hid his views, even though Mussolini ruled Italy and dissent came with brutal consequences. His activism wasn't just words. He handed out leaflets, organized underground actions, sheltered fugitives, and involved his whole family in the fight.
In the Fallaci household, politics were never whispered. They were spoken out loud, with fire and clarity. Oriana's mother, Tosca Cantini, was the calm force in the chaos, yet she too resisted, in her own way. She passed on her love of books to her daughters. They read together, and every spare coin went to buy more stories.
By the time she was 10, Oriana had joined the resistance. She carried secret messages, moved ammunition, helped the Allies. She wasn't just witnessing history, she was shaping it and risking her life to do it. Later she would say, "I've been a soldier since I was a little girl." In 1945, at the age of 16, the Italian army awarded her a medal. To some, she was just a child. To others, a hero.
After the war, she enrolled in Florence's prestigious Galileo Galilei Classical High School. There, her rebellious nature found its rhythm in words. She wasn't after applause. She was after truth. She challenged her teachers, led student movements. Her mind raced years ahead of her time, just like her writing. Math wasn't her strength, but she passed her final exams early and aced Italian with honors.
Her first steps into journalism were steeped in shadows, more noir than news. Working for Il Mattino dell'Italia Centrale in 1946, she covered court cases, visited police stations and morgues. She walked into places other young women wouldn't dare to go, but Fallaci didn't fear the dark. She understood that truth is often messy, brutal, and complicated, and that's exactly why it needs to be told.
In December 1948, Il Mattino ran her piece on Christian Dior's Florence fashion show. It sounded like a manifesto of modernity, shorter, narrower. The show served as a pretext for a broader reflection on the role of women, on cultural change, on beauty. The next day, she published a story about Nonna Cesira, who sewed shirts for Garibaldi's fighters. She could write about anything, and she did it with the same commitment, no matter the subject.
But her ambitions reached further than the regional press. In 1951, she sent an article to the prestigious Europeo. The report covered the funeral of communist Nello Cassini, who had been denied burial in consecrated ground. His comrades, disguised as priests, conducted the ceremony themselves. It was a text full of tension, emotion, theatrical pathos, and authenticity. Editor-in-chief Arrigo Benedetti was impressed. He printed it, thus launching a long collaboration with Fallaci.
Unfortunately, not everyone could appreciate her independence. When she refused to write a piece supporting the Christian Democratic Party for Il Mattino, she was fired. For her, it was no tragedy, rather a liberation. For a short time, she tried working for her uncle, the well-known journalist Bruno Fallaci, at Epoca, but that cooperation satisfied no one. Professionally, it was the darkest period of my life, she admitted years later.
And then she made a decision that changed everything. In 1954, Oriana moved to Rome. The city promised the start of a global career. It beat as the heart of Italian politics, a boiling crucible of newsrooms, editors, correspondents, and reporters. When Oriana Fallaci reached the capital in 1954, she already carried wartime scars, high-profile bylines, and a sacking for refusing to follow a party line. she also carried something else, an unshakable belief that she would become the best, not because she felt arrogant, but because she truly believed it.
Editors at Europeo showed her no mercy. Although her debut piece had impressed everyone, she fought for every new assignment, for trust, for a seat at the conference table. Men ruled the newsroom. Women typed, proofread, or wrote about fashion and children. Fallaci never fitted that pattern, and she loved that.
She began to file reports from far beyond Italy. The magazine sent her to the United States, Mexico, Greece, and Pakistan. She wrote about culture, societies, politics, and wars. She drew more out of sources than anyone else. Her pieces felt personal, fearless, and sharp. She never hid her opinion of an interviewee. If she did not respect them, the reader knew it by the first paragraph.
In year 1958, she published her first book, I Sette Peccati di Hollywood, The Seven Sins of Hollywood. The journey across America shaped the portrait of a country seen through European eyes. She offered no gushing praise, no spite, only honesty, critics noticed, yet the real breakthrough still waited ahead.
In 1967, Fallaci went to Vietnam as a war correspondent. Many women would have stopped at that frontier. She crossed it as if it were the obvious next step. She lived on the front line, documented the fighting, and stared straight at death and the madness of war. One air raid left her badly wounded. Rubble buried her and she blacked out. She survived. Then she went back to the keyboard.
The Vietnam War was more than a subject to her. It became a personal experience that reshaped the way she saw the world. From that journey came the book Niente e così sia, Nothing and So Be It, published in 1969. It remains one of her landmark titles, a literary account of an absurd conflict of fear, trauma, and courage, especially female courage.
Fallaci started writing more and bolder. Each new interview she produced for Europeo, and later for Corriere della Sera, turned into an event. She cornered Henry Kissinger into admitting that the Vietnam War had been useless. She confronted Ayatollah Khomeini like a tyrant, and at the end, ostentatiously cast off the chador she had been told to wear. Yasser Arafat heard that suicide bombers were neither soldiers nor martyrs. She called Lech Wałęsa vain, pretentious, and cocksure. He called her a pushy woman.
No one else spoke to the powerful that way. No one else dared to ask those questions. Her interviews felt like duels. She never tried to charm her guests or paint flattering portraits. She aimed straight for the core. When they dodged, she interrupted, provoked, confronted. Some meetings ended in shouting matches, others in silence and a slammed door. Yet what reached print packed power, and no one could ignore it.
In conversation, she could be merciless and yet humane. Although she drove the world's most powerful figures to fury, she never did it to dominate. She did it because she believed everyone deserves the truth. Such moments turned her interviews into more than journalistic exchanges.
She compelled Ethiopia's last emperor Haile Selassie to speak frankly. She fired hard questions at Israel's Prime Minister Golda Meir. Deng Xiaoping's openness in her company startled every major Western outlet, and those are but a few of hundreds of encounters. They told stories of clashing values, of cultures in collision, of the boundaries of freedom, and the courage to push them. Fallaci never feared accusations of bias. She knew objectivity is not coldness, but honesty toward the facts.
In 1974, her book Interview with History appeared, a collection of conversations with the leading political figures of the 20th century. Italy read it on its knees. The rest of the world read it trembling. Journalists dissected every answer, every provocation, every sudden pivot. Fallaci proved that the interview is a literary form equal to the novel or reportage, sometimes even stronger, because it pits real personalities and beliefs against daylight, and they do not always survive the glare.
Over time, Fallaci earned the title Interview Master. Life, the New York Times, Look, the Washington Post, and Newsweek printed her stories. Vogue, Rolling Stone, and even Playboy profiled her. Publishers translated her books into dozens of languages, yet success never softened her. On the contrary, as the years passed, her voice grew even sharper.
In 1975, she released one of her most intimate books, Lettera a un bambino mai nato, Letter to a Child Never Born. Though a work of fiction, it drew on a deeply personal loss, a miscarriage. Fallaci never had children, and her passionate relationship with the Greek revolutionary Alexandros Panagoulis ended in tragedy. He died in a mysterious crash. She never tied herself to anyone seriously again.
In Letter, she spoke as a woman torn between freedom and motherhood, certain that the world still refused women full autonomy. The book sparked fierce emotion. Some hailed it as a feminist manifesto, others saw pure despair. But like everything that left Fallaci's pen, it could not be ignored, and it was only the first spark in a new blaze of disputes and controversies that would soon flare around her.
Riding the wave of popularity, she returned to more personal themes. She wrote essays, short stories, and books about emotion, women, and solitude. Yet she could not escape politics. She went to Iran after the revolution, to Lebanon during the Civil War, to Argentina at the height of terror. She kept going back to the front line, and she always asked the first question. From 1979, she filed for the Italian daily Corriere della Sera.
By the late 70s and early 80s, Oriana Fallaci already stood as a legend. Women drew inspiration from her. Politicians saw her as a challenge. Editors reached for the heaviest caliber whenever they needed to dig deeper than anyone before. She herself said she felt no interest in the surface. She always wanted to know why, and she always asked as though no taboo existed.
In 1990, she released the novel Insala, set in Beirut, thick with war, mysticism, collapse, and hope. The book felt dense, demanding, and packed with symbolism. It showed how deeply Fallaci entered every subject she chose. She did not keep travel notes. She forged literature out of experience, a story about what war does to people and the price one pays for truth.
In private life, she pulled back from public view. She lived in New York, traveled less, wrote more slowly, yet she never vanished. Quite the opposite. Critics quoted and analyzed every word, every essay, every statement. She remained an authority. She simply changed the tools.
Everything changed on November 11th, 2001. The attack on the World Trade Center marked a turning point for her. She lived in New York. She knew the city. She loved its rhythm, diversity, and energy. After the attacks, she wrote the essay La rabbia e l'orgoglio, The Rage and the Pride, a text that divided public opinion more than anything she had ever published.
The essay sounded emotional, angry, steeped in fear and scenes of violence. Fallaci wrote about Islam, Europe, the West, the collapse of civilization. She warned against fundamentalism and named things plainly, in a manner many readers found controversial. Some saw a prophetess sounding the alarm of doom. Others thought she had crossed a line into hatred.
The book became a bestseller, and it drew accusations of Islamophobia, intolerance, and prejudice. Fallaci withdrew not a single word. She wrote further essays, defended her stance, and refused to join debates that, as she put it, turned journalism into a festival of political correctness.
After the 11th September attack, she voiced aloud what many only whispered. She wrote that Europe surrendered, that liberal democracy could not cope with religious fanaticism. Some of her words cut sharper than necessary. Perhaps that sharpness helped them reach people. She never explained them away, and she never apologized.
In one of her final interviews, she said, "I can't stop speaking when the world is on fire, even if nobody listens." And indeed, she spoke until the very end. Her 2004 book, La forza della ragione, The Force of Reason, answered accusations of hatred and Islamophobia. She wanted to show that she fought not against faith, but against an ideology that, in her view, threatened freedom. Yet many failed to see the difference.
By then, she had long known she was ill. Doctors had diagnosed cancer in 1991. For years, she fought the disease, hiding it from the world. She refused to be judged through the lens of suffering. She wanted to be remembered as a journalist, not as a patient, as a voice, not an echo.
Despite the illness, she wrote to the end. Her final years passed mostly on her estate in Tuscany, near Florence, where everything had begun. Beneath olive trees, facing the hills, with books, notes, and manuscripts that, as she liked to say, were her only family. Her words still divided opinion, yet no one denied that Fallaci was unique and irreplaceable.
Although a staunch atheist, she asked for an audience with Pope Benedict XVI. The meeting took place at Castel Gandolfo on 27 August 2005. Although Oriana asked for discretion, news of the encounter leaked to the press. The substance of their talk, however, has remained a secret.
Oriana Fallaci died on 15 September 2006 in Florence, where she had been born and where she first declared she would become a writer. She was 77. Her funeral was no political rally, though politicians came in force. Nor was it merely a tribute to a journalist. It testified to the depth of her influence on the present day. Even after death, she kept speaking. Her books, essays, and interviews did not fade, and they did not cease to divide.
She was a woman who rejected every label. She refused to be only a feminist symbol, though she fought unflinchingly for women's rights. She declined to serve solely as a left-wing voice, though she had long sympathized with the left. She would not be just a journalist, because she felt that words could cut deeper than weapons, yet must also cut wiser. Fallaci was ahead of her time, and at the same time could not always understand her.
Oriana always wrote from the heart, yet also from anger. She used to say journalism is a form of struggle, that it is not enough to report. One must intervene, that one cannot remain merely a witness, one must take part. Hence, her professional life brimmed with quarrels, conflicts, and admiration. Her conversations with the great of this world passed into history. Yet her pieces about ordinary people, mothers, children, refugees, soldiers, mattered just as much. About the forgotten, because Oriana Fallaci believed everyone deserves a story.
After Fallaci's death, debate flared across Italy and beyond about how to remember her, as a war reporter, as the author of feminist manifestos, or as a conservative critic of Islam. The truth is more complex. Oriana was all of those, yet not only those. She was a person who refused convenient answers, who lived in opposition, and who could turn anger into prose.
Her biography tells the story of the 20th century. Fascism, war, Reconstruction, rebellion, feminism, cultural clash, the threat of terrorism, loneliness, love, loss, and described them so vividly that readers sensed she had lived them. She did not pretend. She did not construct a persona. She was that persona.
In later years, her life has ever more often reached academic halls. Philologists, historians, and political scientists analyze it, yet the best way to understand her is to pick up her books, Nothing and So Be It, Letter to a Child Never Born, Interview with History, The Rage and the Pride,
and sit with them not as with an archive, but as with a person, with someone bold enough to tell the world, I don't like what I see and I refuse to stay silent.
Oriana Fallaci once said, "There is no such thing as neutrality. Silence is also it." She was a woman who chose to speak, loudly, defiantly, inconveniently, painfully, yet truthfully. And that is why, to this day, no one has replaced her.
Thank you for listening and staying with us to the end.
For following the path of a Florentine writer who turned words into resistance.
If her story spoke to you, subscribe to our podcast, leave a like, and share the episode.
Your suggestions for future profiles are always welcome in the comments.
When you are ready for more, our earlier episodes await on the feed.
This has been the Media History Podcast, brought to you by the Reporterzy.info team.
Narrated by Małgorzata Dwornik.
And Bartłomiej Dwornik.
Goodbye, and talk to you soon.
Goodbye, and talk to you soon.